Good morning and welcome to our third and final webinar for our current Rethinking Manufacturing webinar series brought to you by BDO in Australia. My name is Ryan Pollett. I'm a partner with BDO in Australia as well as the national leader for our manufacturing and wholesale team. If you joined us for one of our Rethinking webinars, Rethinking Manufacturing webinars earlier this year or last year, then welcome back. It's great to have you joining us again. If it's your first time joining us, our Rethinking Manufacturing webinar series is all about tackling the big issues for Australian manufacturers in today's world. We share insights from a range of perspectives, including sustainability, productivity, supply chain challenges, and more. If you'd like to see any of the previous webinars in this series, they're available for you to watch at your leisure via our BDO website. And we'll share a link after the session. From a housekeeping perspective, just got a couple of quick reminders to put up onto your screen and just draw your attention to the slide that's there at the moment. This webinar is in a panel format, which means that everyone apart from the presenter is automatically muted. However, we do encourage you to contribute your questions via the question tab and take part in the poll questions throughout the session. We will aim to answer all your questions during the webinar, but if we don't get to your question, we will follow up with you afterwards. Just to let you know, this session is being recorded. Following today's webinar, you'll all receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording, as well as a separate copy of the slides. Finally, if you have any technical difficulties, please click the support button located at the bottom of your screen. All right, so in today's webinar, we're going to be talking about productivity for Australian manufacturers. We are seeing the way that new and sophisticated scheduling is challenging and changing the way that labour is engaged within the manufacturing sector. This raises a number of important issues, such as how do we ensure the adequacy of skill sets? Can we retrain our existing workforce to increase efficiencies? If we can't retrain our workforce, then where does the qualified labour come from? So in this session, we're going to explore some of these issues, as well as discussing lean production and how to retrain, retain, and attract skilled workers. So I think this is going to be a really exciting and insightful session. And on that note, I look forward to introducing you to our panelists today. Firstly, I would like to welcome Professor Gabriele Suder, who's the Dean of the New Business Accelerator at Federation University. Welcome, Gabriele. This newly established portfolio was developed to prove new and innovative educational products with industry focus comprehensively across this multi-campus university and its significant regional footprint. Gabriele is an award-winning professor, international business researcher, author, speaker, and front-end innovator in the design, development, and delivery of digital learning. She's an accomplished advisor, business expert, and corporate relations practitioner, as well as a highly effective negotiator. Gabriele's extensive experience and thought leadership in business strategy is most welcome on our panel today. So welcome to Gabriele.
Thank you very much.
And I'd also like to welcome Jimmy Zeniou, who's the CEO of Helen's European Cuisine. Welcome, Jimmy.
Thank you, Ryan.
Helen's is a successful food manufacturing company which has been owned and operated by the Zeniou family since it began in 1993. Helen's has since evolved from a small home-based operation to the market leader in European specialty foods, employing over 65 people, producing over 200 unique products and supplying outlets across Australia. So Jimmy's going to provide us with some wonderful insights into the productivity issues of a national food manufacturer. Thank you, Jimmy, and welcome. Finally, we're joined by Tim Riordan, who's a partner with our consulting team at BDO. Tim is a business improvement professional with particular expertise in operations and capital projects. He works with private sector organisations to improve their business and financial performance, as well as assist government agencies in policy development and programme implementation. He has extensive experience in asset management, business transformation, operations improvement, and supply chain planning across the manufacturing sector. So welcome, Tim.
Thanks, Ryan.
So thank you to all our panelists for offering your expertise as part of our discussion today. And we'll just get into a little bit of the discussion now. Just want to talk a little bit about the current state of play in terms of the manufacturing and labour in the manufacturing industry at present. So over the last several decades, we've seen the closure of many of Australia's manufacturing facilities in favour of moving capability offshore, which at the time was done to reduce labour costs, amongst many other things. However, the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting supply chain issues have caused many to rethink this strategy. It's highlighted a potential need to bring more manufacturing back onshore, as well as ensuring that we attract and retain an adequately skilled workforce to support this. So I guess to kick things off, Gabriele, if I could come to you first, could you just tell us a little bit about some of the trends that are emerging around skills gaps as part of the work that you're doing at Federation University and the New Business Accelerator?
Sure, thank you. So yes, the New Business Accelerator, as you were saying, is a fairly new capability that Federation University has built, and the team is really there to support and help industry and businesses to align with industry trends, skills demands, which of course is a big topic of the day of this webinar, increasing employees' motivations and attraction retention patterns, and really improve staff efficiency and enhance skill sets or reskill as appropriate. And with that, regional footprint, because of course regional has become so front of mind, and right so, when it comes to looking into how the manufacturing industry is evolving as we speak, is dealing with the ramifications of COVID in particular, and everything that has been highlighted there in terms of supply chain and value chain participation, etc. And really how we can leverage that. So we are the response to that, and that is also because we want to provide an effective response for the manufacturing industry, not only, but also the manufacturing industry, and it needs to scale up, improve competitiveness, and build more resilient supply chains and capabilities. So we do that through educational offers, many of which are more short course than micro-credential type, bite-sized almost offers, and I will talk a little bit more about that later. But at this moment in time, in response to your question also, well, we of course, because we are a multi-campus university and education provider, we look at where the skills needs are to customize our suite of responses to that. And I can, for example, mention that when you look at specialized skill sets that are in demand in the Ballarat region, which is one of the regions where we are active and we're located. Interestingly enough, soft skills are really front and center there. Teamwork, those types of soft skills are really front and center of where employers and also employees see a need to, work on this, to upskill, to reskill sometimes to particular new team structures as well. But then also, look, SAP, ERP type of skills, budgeting, customer service, and customer experience type of needs. That's really where we can see specialized skills that are in high demand. Then when we look at another part of where we have the university located, and I will not speak about each one of the regions where we're located, but in Gippsland, for example, you would add good manufacturing practices, product management, scheduling, those types of things with slightly different priorities on the list of what's top of mind and what comes next. When we look at Melbourne, you take actually a fairly similar list of skills gaps and add stakeholder management as a front of mind type of skill that employers and employees would like to be educated more around. And then maybe I just mention also, because Jimmy is of course in the call, the Queensland regions where we are also located, where one needs to add skills around project management in particular to that list. So there's there are those demands and those skill gaps where we're really trying to bring the solutions.
That's excellent. Thank you, Gabriele. That's really insightful. And I guess, Jimmy, if I could come to you next on that, does that resonate in terms of some of the skills gaps that you've seen? And maybe you can talk a bit about some of the challenges that you've faced as well in terms of attracting skilled workers.
Yeah, look, I guess it's identifying within your own staff who you can elevate as well, and it's having the right facilitator for that. So you've got to have the right personalities to teach the right people as well. But certainly what I've found is just educating within people that have started with us, been with us for a long time, that want to be upskilled as well. A lot of the time there's a lot of resistance because no one likes change. That everyone gets a bit comfortable. But though, if you can outline the opportunity and you can guide them along that path, it's definitely valuable because you've got someone there for a long time and they know your business, not just that skill set. And that's really important for them because what happens along the way, there's just so much more to what that specific job is. Sometimes they're going to jump out of that role and jump into another role which they've done before. So it's really handy. I probably can't stress enough if you can, upskill your current staff to get into those positions. So it's like what you were saying before, Professor. Like you're saying, those other for supply chain in those different states. So I'd say, why not Queensland? Can we do that in Queensland as well? So some of those skill sets are something that we would look at, depending on what we need. But yeah, we've found that it's always evolving, and we always look within first. That's number one. But one of the key things is, well, what I've learned anyway, is you got to make sure that the teaching facility is the right for the right person as well, because you've got to have the personalities match. Otherwise, again, they've just resisted a bit. So if you can get past that, it's definitely beneficial.
That's great advice. Thanks, Jimmy. And Tim, maybe I could come to you. Do you have any thoughts on any of those comments from Gabriele and Jimmy and some of the trends that they're seeing?
Well, look, I don't want to repeat. I think Jimmy and Gabriele bring very common sense perspectives. I guess the thing that I take when they talk about these things is resilience, in that it's not just let's bring manufacturing back because it's a political soundbite. It's we've got to set up for success. As Jimmy talks about, you leverage the internal capability. As Gabriele's talking about, you need to build some of the broader skills, and so there's internal and external things that need to happen. But it's the combination of all of that is creating resilient businesses that are going to be here in 10 years, 20 years, not, we bring them back for 2 years, pandemic's over, and we go back to how we were. It's really setting up for the long term.
And Tim, do you think it's important that Australia has a vibrant manufacturing industry? Do you have a view on that?
That's a great Dorothy Dix question, Ryan. You know my views on that. Look, my view on that question is, and I've talked to you before, that manufacturing and agriculture sectors are the big ones that really drive productivity. They're the standouts over decades. And Australia's richer for a manufacturing base because those skills are like a force multiplier, to use a military term, for really driving good practices across the whole economy. And manufacturing's shrunk to some extent, but as a proportion of the economy, but the skills that are mature in manufacturing, and I know Jimmy and Gabriele are going to talk to some of those as we go along. Like, they're mature in manufacturing, and industries like mining and construction and service sector, they're just opening their eyes to them. And like you've already talked about, supply chain, that stuff's been done in manufacturing for decades. And the rest of Australia is now thinking, oh, what's this supply chain thing we need to worry about? So I think it's crucial, and I lament the demise of the automotive sector, not so much because of the profits and salaries that were being generated and the broader influence, but it's the skills that could potentially be lost, and that's something we've got to be really cautious about.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Tim. Thank you. Gabriele or Jimmy, did you want to comment on anything that Tim said just then around manufacturing?
Maybe on what Jimmy was saying earlier, and I just wanted to underpin, and of course, Tim, you've made reference to that as well, but that need of identifying what your talents need, what you need in terms of attracting talents, of course, but what does your talent need, your employees need who are in the job, and customizing that even in regards to the way in which you skill them. So there are, of course, different ways, there needs to be that recognition that people who are already in the job have a different way of learning than young, fresh graduates. And that is, of course, why we make a difference between pedagogy, so more on the child learning side of things, and andragogy, so much more that adult learning side of things. And in addition to that, I think it's really important to think about what kind of channels do you actually use. So some of us are very visual when they learn, some, you know, they're all sorts of different styles. So coming in and making sure that you get the right thing out of the training, the reskilling, the upskilling, whatever it is that you're looking for. And that is adjusted not only through an identification of what are the skills, but also what are the styles, what, you know, how is it that we can shape effective learning and recognize that. I think that's really key components to this.
Excellent. Jimmy, did you have anything further on that one, or?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like we've got our staff base is quite multicultural. We've got a lot of different people in there. Some of them are older. Some of them find it difficult to read and everything else. But we still managed to put around about 40 of them through a lean course, and a lot of them we had people that could help them along the way, and they were great. They were some of the best. You know, they learned really well, and I really appreciate it. So it doesn't stop people. You know, you just got to give them that chance, and they're more than happy to give it a go. But we made sure that we could facilitate that they actually understood it, and you know, they're part of the team. So yeah, exactly. Really agree with you on that one. Everyone's got to be given the chance to do that, and it makes a big difference when everyone's involved.
Thanks, Jimmy. I think this might be a good time to run a poll question, just to get a taste for what everyone out there is thinking, and I think we're just going to put that up shortly. So you see that on your screen now. If you're listening in, you can select yes or no. It's a simple question. Are you facing challenges with attracting and retaining skilled labor? Yeah, I think that's really the crux of what we're talking about today. And I don't know, as we're waiting on the results to come up, Jimmy, did you want to talk to, you know, have you experienced challenges finding labor in this current market?
Is that a trick question?
Yeah, no. I'm sort of preempting what I think the answer is going to be here.
Yeah, well, like right now, it's I think it's just part of the pandemic. It's a stage we're all going through, and talking to a lot of other business owners, everyone's that I've talked to is facing that challenge. And if they're not facing that challenge, they've got a lot of people away. So productivity is down with that. There's not a lot of manufacturers that I know that aren't in that situation at the moment. Yeah, look, you know, for us, we're retaining our staff. It's just demand's increased, and it's the absences that we have because of the situation at the moment. But look, you know, that will change. Like the last 2 years, it's always been a changing target. So at the moment, that's what we're facing. But we're putting on more staff as well to sort of 95%. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, probably not a surprise, but you know, sometimes it's good just to...
There's someone there, good on them. But that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, it is challenging, but like throughout this whole situation that we've been facing, we're not in it alone. I think most manufacturers are facing difficulties in one way or another, whether it be supply chain or labour to facilitate production and the increase in demands. You know, the whole country just switched back on. So we've got a massive increase in demand, and we've all got labour shortages for one reason or the other, whether they're not being retained, movement, or just people being sick. It's happening. You know, it's just another phase. So I think we'll get through it. For us, yeah, we've retained our good staff. We look after them. I believe we've got a good business and a good culture. I think that's key. I think that's really helped us throughout this whole, you know, well, 29 years. It's been good. And part of that is, yeah, right now there's opportunity for people to join, I guess.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. That's great. And interesting that, yeah, the poll was pretty much as expected. And I suppose what we'll try and do now in this part of the webinar, we'll unpick some of that a little bit around some of the key skills and some of the approaches that you guys have taken and what you've seen out there in the real world. And one of the key topics that comes up a lot, I think, is the intersection between skills and technology. And you know, thinking about Industry 4.0 and how that's been affecting manufacturing for some time. You know, that was there pre-COVID, but it's become even more to the fore now with, you know, the labour shortages that we're seeing, but also the need to reskill and upskill workers. So, Gabriele, maybe I could come to you first on this one. You know, what are some of the challenges and opportunities that you're seeing arising from Industry 4.0? Is this changing the nature of the skills in the manufacturing workforce that you're seeing out there from the educational point of view?
Yeah, I think so. And look, we can see it when we think about what industries Australia is currently having, and where new industries and where we're transforming as well into new ways of working, of course. The ongoing rapid change to technology, industries, the social patterns that come with that, the processes, all of that with increasing interconnectivity and smart automation, of course, which, you know, the essence really of Industry 4.0 can be a great opportunity, and it should be in terms of our competitiveness, but it isn't necessarily for everyone. And that's again where education and skilling, reskilling, upskilling, etc., really comes in. So when we think about and read about enterprises that use that cognitive model, really, so it's about cognitive enterprise, isn't it? And we have education programs around that at Federation University. It's really using, for example, data in a smart way. It's using AI. There's so much potential in there, blockchain and automation, and really performing with what we could call purposeful agility as part of the value chain. That's wonderful. But how do you actually do that? And how do you do that when your business hadn't had that kind of capability previously? And how do you bring your talents, your real talents? Jimmy was talking about those people, you know, who you nurture and you stay connected, you're engaged, you bring them on a path with you. How do you actually do that? So the main challenge certainly is for the industry to tap into talent or skill people up, coherently for those, for that agility, for that understanding of what tools are out there. Have that recognized as well. People need the recognition that they have that understanding, and sometimes you can make that what we call stackable, so that, you know, you have some learning here, you have some learning there, you actually compose your own journey, but it's the journey that your organization, your sector is taking. So I think that's both an opportunity and a challenge as well. So what we do, for example, is helping organizations retain their people by offering bite-sized solutions that are really customized, as I said before, that people can use on their own time, so that you recognize everything that Jimmy was saying about his people, and you recognize that they are busy and that they don't feel they can step out of work for a year or 2 years or what have you, because when you look at the median age of people employed in manufacturing at this moment in time, who are having that appetite or who need these extra skills, that's 44.2. So around, you know, it's sort of mid 40s at this moment in time. You need to recognize what their motivation is, their life context, their learning styles, as we said before, and that might differ from younger ones. So I think, you know, as you're asking about challenges and opportunities, they are both, and hopefully education and customized education can really help link that together and make sure that we combine this for the benefit of everyone.
100% agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. And Jimmy, maybe I could come to you as well. Interested to learn a bit more about your journey in terms of lean manufacturing and that you've been on over the past few years. So for anyone that's not aware, lean manufacturing is a production system that focuses on reducing waste, creating customer value, and seeking continuous process improvement. So could you tell us a little bit about that journey that you've been on at Helen's and how you've approached the need to retrain workers as part of that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, we started as basically a small kitchen, so for us we're just making things the way that we thought. We had the blinkers on, and that's how we thought things were done. So as the business evolved, we've got two production kitchens now. We're continually looking at improving our processes. So we're doing that along the way without knowing about lean. And then you start, you know, hang on, how can we, because again, it can't all be from supply, and you can't keep on, you know, customer price. So it's how do we add more value to our customer base, and it's being more efficient. First, you know, I looked into lean myself, and I guess that's probably one of the first lessons I learned, is you just can't drive that yourself. You need to make sure that the whole team is involved. The first, you know, lesson I had, I put a piece of machine down there, and I think they broke it within a month because I didn't have buy-in from the team. I was like, oh, we'll get this, everything will be great, you know, I'll make it heaps faster and it'll make it easier for everyone. But I guess my challenge was that, and what I learned is it's not, you can't just have that mindset. You got to make sure the people around you have that mindset. Not only the mindset, it's the reasons why. And to have a business sort of thinking mentality. And then that way you really don't feel like you're doing it alone as well. So from there we engaged someone to look at it. He was quite good, but their approach was quite, you have to do this. So that approach didn't really work with my team too well. We got some things out of it. And then the next approach was, because again, it was like, how do we get this across? We had another facilitator where we thought we're not just going to educate, you know, top management. Anyone that wanted to have a look at it, and I talked a little bit about this before, was welcome to do and it was a lean course. So they all got certification afterwards as well. So a lot of the people have never done anything like that before. We hosted it on our own premises. So within that as well, they had to do projects as well. So we saw as a business, yes, it's quite expensive because you're pulling, for us, we're pulling 10 people out of production each time, 4 times, you know, and so it's, if you look at it that way, but they all got a project, you know, and they had to complete a project, and all of those projects were beneficial for the business if you just look at that period of time. But that's not the point. The point is all their mindsets changed into, well, most of them into a sort of lean manufacturing, which basically is just working more effectively. That's what it's about, and not just learning on how do we do things better, but how do we do things better so we have better customer service and our customers are getting better value, which then makes us more competitive, which then means that we can hire more people, and it just keeps on going on. We can build the culture that we've got. So that was probably one of the best things that we did, was just bring everyone in. And now it's me being impatient. I want to get stuff, and they're like, no, 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 stop. You have to plan. So I'm the let's go, let's do it, and I get held back a little bit now, and I'm going, oh, that's good. So yeah, so it's successful. It certainly is work. But look, for us, by no means are we, even close to the end of the journey, and we've still got a long way to go with a lot of improvements. And for us, it's just so important and critical right now that we keep on improving our processes and our efficiencies, especially with the cost of goods and the current situation that's happening at the moment. But the good thing is our team's all in on that, and we're constantly looking at ways that we can improve it, but not just from a management team. It's everyone from all parts of the business. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey along the way, but it's still ongoing. I don't think it ever stops. You've got to keep on keep with it.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks, Jimmy. And Tim, maybe I could bring you in on this. Is this something that you've seen with some of your clients going on a similar type of journey that you could talk to?
Look, I think there's parts of Jimmy's story that would resonate with all manufacturers. There's no manufacturers out there that are not looking to improve and manage their costs better and all that sort of stuff. I would say Jimmy's quite humble in his story, because like he's looked to, through his people, actually drive and enable people to be able to drive those improvements that he and his management team don't have to manage everything. And it's like unleashing the human potential in the organisation. Because what I would say is there's a lot of people who've done what Jimmy's talking about, but the majority got some success, but not the real success. And the fact that Jimmy's saying there's a long way to go on the journey just reflects the maturity of the organisation's thinking. And I almost characterise it, or not almost, I do characterise it as, people talk about, we're going to do lean, or we're going to do quality management, or we're going to do just in time, or whatever the technique is. And it sounds simple, but okay, we'll get someone in, they'll tell us how to do it. But that's actually, the reality is, doing it properly is complex, because you've got to bring people along, you've got to get them, everyone's a bit different, everyone's got to come at their own pace. And then we come to the other side of the situation, where how do we make a more productive industry and business, which sounds really complicated and complex. But if you do the sort of things that Jimmy's done, that becomes quite a simple process to unleash that potential to really drive improvements that you didn't even know were there. So yeah, to your question, I think everyone's somewhere on that journey. Some have done it well, some have done it less well, and the reality is that improvement journey never ends for anyone. So, and as soon as you stop, you're basically going backwards, and then you're starting to die. So yeah, it's a great story. So hats off to Jimmy.
Yeah, 100%.
I might just add to that one of our currently most successful short courses and workshops, customized again to industry, is around innovation in business. Because with COVID, so many industries, so many businesses have realized that they, how we called it, pivoted in terms of the operating model, etc. But then coming back into the pre-COVID context or operating model, it's not a productive future model, is it? It's really about, all right, how can we blend what we have been doing and what we have been learning over that period of time, and then how we can, everybody has been innovative, everyone, no matter the size of the company, etc. There needs to be that recognition, and I hope well, it appears we bring that recognition, and then you need to have that understanding of how do you actually blend, transform, combine to really leverage the business value that you're having.
100% agree with that, Gabriele. Yeah, absolutely. And that concept of customer-driven innovation has been been quite important, and I think will continue to be important as we come out the other side of the COVID pandemic. And I think it's really interesting that Federation University's got that sort of skill set in mind in terms of some of the courses that you're putting together around teaching innovation skills. So not innovation for the sake of innovation, but innovation with a practical mindset, a commercial mindset around what customers want and how we can adapt to that changing environment. Would that be a fair sort of way of putting it? Or?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Absolutely. Mm.
That's great. That's great. Okay, thank you. Maybe Tim, I might just come back to you on productivity a little bit. I'm just interested if you could talk a little bit about some of the key drivers for productivity. Obviously, we've talked a lot about labor and skills as one of those drivers, but how do they intersect with some of the others, and how can companies seek a balance in terms of pulling on some of those levers, if you like, and where their money goes?
Yeah, okay. So, and look, let me just say, I think this is the most important topic to our whole economy, because productivity drives living standards, and if we don't sort of have that front and center, we're in trouble. Well, and there's different ways of cutting it, but I think it was Jimmy earlier referred to organisations offshoring, taking manufacturing offshore. And we sort of break it into different levels. That there's almost like the lazy productivity improvement is like a labour rate arbitrage, that we can manufacture cheaper overseas, so we do it and we import it. We haven't really improved our business. In actual fact, we may have made our lead times longer, and in the last 2 years we've found we may really have quite a vulnerable business doing that. The second layer is really, for want of a better term, is really just process improvement and really doing things better. And that takes different forms. It's within the organisation, it's outside, but it's really getting really slick around your processes. You've never finished, you're continually improving, you use technology, but you're using the people as well. There's another layer which is scale efficiencies. So it's not just what you're doing today, but how do you grow and how do you access different markets and different product ranges and the like. And then I think there's another layer which is the whole ecosystem, other organisations, suppliers, customers, industry groups, as well as the education and skills sector, really coming together to create another layer of improvement in businesses. And it's not a case that, you know, one's right and one's wrong. It's just understanding which of those levers you're actually impacting when you do your interventions and your initiatives would be what I would be thinking about. And no one's got all the answers, but I think we're thinking about them, we're moving in the right direction.
Excellent, thanks, Tim. Jimmy or Gabriele, did you have anything to add to some of those comments? Jimmy, maybe from a practical perspective, how are you focusing on, you know, the intersection of some of the productivity drivers that Tim was touching on there?
Yeah, I think yeah, all those factors are got to be taken into consideration. But if you can tell with your own business what you can see needs the most attention, and each business is different. Each business has got different levels of successes in each section. So you know, for us, labor is a big thing. So and then it's skill and upskilling. So for us, that's where we see a lot. But not to say that we neglect all the other levels. It's just and again, you look at it and you go, what will give us the best result? And some of it's a long term, and you've got to commit to long term stuff, and some of it's short term. So yeah, it just depends on your business and where you're at. But it's good to identify those. You know, you don't even realize there's those levers until someone goes, oh yeah, you know, to identify those points is really good, I think.
Excellent.
I agree. There's so much needs to understand those different needs and requirements, of course, but also that combination. We need to align government, industry, and training in institutes and the advisors, and have them work together on making sure that we can support the manufacturing industry in a way that we don't have situations like we've seen across COVID, where obviously, you know, everybody's seen what happened to supply chains, etc. So that's been, I mean, what other illustration would we need to know that Australia does need certain capabilities that had vanished prior. It's really interesting to look at how companies have struggled to get those capabilities together, and of course with borders closing as well, to bring those talents in. And it would just be that kind of, you know, almost natural dependency on bringing talents in whenever needed. But when you're in a situation where you really want to build resilience, you need to tap into a much greater and broader talent pool, and sometimes it's there, it's already there, or it's not far away from you. So from what I've seen over these years is, or these recent years in particular, is how much more diverse and comprehensive the thinking is around how we can combine skills to leverage the talents that we need, whether that's culturally or ethnically or socially or locationally in Australia, including remotely placed talents and people who have so there seems to be much more of that mindset of, yes, let's bring people in who think differently because it makes us stronger. And yes, that means that we need to invest into bringing them on board of what a certain organization wants to do, but we can do this. And we've really dedicated also our training objectives and our strategic plans around exactly that. What is still needed? What is it that we need to do at this moment in time and also into the future?
Yeah, that's a fascinating point, I think, and you know, certainly with some of the issues that everyone's experiencing with a lack of access to labour, you know, a combination of all those things that we're talking about. So bringing in skills potentially from regional areas or overseas, retraining existing workforce and upskilling. You need a combination of all those things. And I'm just thinking, is there any other alternatives out there for companies if they're really facing some of these issues? For example, you touched on then, Gabriele, maybe some transferable skills in other industries or connected industries, and Tim touched on earlier the automotive industry and some of the skills that are still alive and well in terms of some of those companies that have now disappeared, but the skills are still there, albeit that they might be dying out if we don't give them some attention. Other ideas might be around, as we move on this path towards decarbonisation and lack of, reduction in reliance on fossil fuel production, might we see some skills coming out of that sector that could be redeployed into manufacturing? I'd be interested if you had any thoughts on that. I suppose all of you, but maybe Gabriele, I could come to you first.
I'm happy to go first, absolutely, because we're really very much looking into that, and I think, how can I say, building the path for others as well. So Federation University has adopted what we call a co-op model, which is really being very close to industry. So in everything we're doing, we make sure that we have industry input, whether that is co-design, whether that is headships and internships, whether that's projects. Jimmy, you talked about projects, etc. So in the different offers, I'm not speaking necessarily only of the traditional programs. I'm also speaking of those short courses, nano credentials, etc., customized workshops, and so on. And I think that is really important because, as you're saying, there are so many transferable skills from different industries, from one region to the other is something that we see as well. Of course, every organization, every region is different, but there are commonalities. So looking into and encouraging people to look into what solutions have been found elsewhere, that peer engagement that is broader and that really increases the way in which you look for solutions is very important. That's something that we can leverage this way. I'm always intrigued to see how dependent Australia has been in the past and probably continues to be, and it's not necessarily a negative thing, on international input, but I think it's about finding the right balance and the right combination and making sure that international capabilities, foreign-owned capabilities, work closely with local, so that it's a win-win situation, so that we learn from each other, so that we have that resilience, and that goes way beyond any kind of, you know, maintaining or achieving compliance to hit international markets. It should really be about how can we support our people so that our industries, our manufacturing sectors are productive and remain productive into the future.
Yeah, I think there's some great points there. Jimmy, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I guess from a real-time perspective, we're seeing a lot of people crossing over into our industry. A lot of people. I'm actually doing all the interviews myself now. I enjoy doing it. I get to see everyone that comes into the business. We seem to get a lot more people coming through as well. But I'm seeing a lot of people that are applying aren't from my industry. And something that I say to them, I can teach them skills, I can't teach them attitude. So as long as they've got the right personality, right cultural fit, we're more than happy to teach them the skill set in our industry. So, but we are certainly seeing it. We didn't see, prior to COVID, if we didn't add, and I wasn't doing it before, but we would see, 300-400 applicants, and we're probably seeing 30 or 40. So that's a big decrease, but we're seeing a lot of them aren't from our industry. So that's interesting that people are actually not just moving, but are moving out of their comfort zone and willing to try something different. But again, I think that's probably, if you're open to it as a business, you can always teach them the skill set if they're willing. That's half the battle. So that's probably one thing that we are seeing that happen quite a bit now.
That's interesting. Tim, did you want to add anything from your perspective?
Well, no, I think Gabriele and Jimmy have covered it pretty well. I just was reflecting on something Gabriele said earlier about the combination of soft skills and hard skills. I think is really important. And even though Jimmy's not necessarily saying it, I think that diversity of input actually creates an environment where people think more holistically, or if you like, in a systems sort of way. And I think that's really critical. But I think the real life experience covers it.
100%. Yeah, that's a great point, I think. And I guess just to move on to one other topic, in terms of how we embed resilience in terms of what we're talking about here, skills in manufacturing, and Gabriele, you touched on this earlier, but interested to know from each of you your thoughts around what role government should be playing in this. How can they help in terms of supporting and enabling a productive and sustainable manufacturing sector? Obviously, we've just had a change of government, and they've been very vocal, the new Labour government, around what they intend to do in terms of investing in the sector. How can we ensure that money goes to the right places? And do you have any views on that? Gabriele, maybe did you want to go first on that one?
Sure, happy to do that. I really see a link between what we just said before and this question, because there needs to be this recognition by government that there's much more of what Jimmy explained, which is that permeability almost, that of roles, of jobs, of going from one sector to the other. And we can see that through our Federation University strategic plan and lens when we look at whether that's allied health or agri business and foods and renewables. That's really that awareness also amongst people, and I call them learners in my universe, but they are of course employees, talents, whatever terminology you would want to use. People have become so much more aware of that, so that you have that one set of thoughts. How strong the awareness of that is at government is a really crucial matter. And when you look at skills gaps reports, which is part of my daily reading, you can actually depict that the publicly available data in particular is having a particular perspective. It's not complete and really sees the manufacturing sector as something incredibly broad. So making sure that the government works on giving us all, providing signals in terms of long-term investment industry policy that are strategic and specific, inclusive, and all the rest of it. I think that is really what is the most important here. So investment signals, for example, will require getting the private sector on board and the educational institutions aligned with government agendas. Again, coming together and aligning strategically as much as we can, I think, is absolutely key here.
Couldn't agree more. Jimmy, did you have any comment on that?
Oh, it's a touchy subject. Government support for businesses. Where do I start? To start, like it's so expensive to manufacture in Australia. Look, and we're doing everything that we can. So, the government, we always feel the more people you hire, the more you pay tax. It just the formula for me just doesn't seem right. I think there should be benefits when you're hiring people. I don't think it should be a deterrent. I don't think you should get to certain stages in business and go, oh, what do I do here? Do I grow or do I stay at this stage because I'm going to go on the next tax level with hiring people? So I think number one, that needs to be dealt with at some stage because it's just not the right way of thinking. We're past that. We want to hire more people and we enjoy it. We're a family business and it's great to have that ability. The other thing is as well is for a lot of businesses, they don't know about the government grants, so they put them out there, and sometimes it's so complicated as a normal person to fill out those grants, and the people that need it probably aren't successful because they don't know the wording to put in or the terminologies, and they can't necessarily afford to pay consultants to fill them out. So I think some of the stuff needs to be a little bit simpler. It needs to be directed towards if it can be directed towards skill set, upskilling, and then just helping with some of those challenges within business, of having a business that employs a decent workforce as well. That's a quick version.
No, some great points from a practical perspective, Jimmy. Thanks. And yeah, absolutely give us the incentive to grow. Don't give us a deterrent from growth. It's that's a real key message. I think we want Australian companies to be supported and grow their manufacturing base. Tim, did you want to add some thoughts as well?
Yeah, look, so we like to be more controversial. Government's track record with pity winners is terrible, so they shouldn't be trying to do that. There's a lot of money slopping around. A lot of it's not very effective. Some of it's great, but it's a bit of a throw it at the wall and see what happens type strategy. Jimmy's right about how difficult it is to access some of this stuff, and if you don't fill out the form properly, it doesn't matter how worthy you are, you just don't qualify. So just a quick ad, it'd be great to get BDO to help with that, but that's a separate issue. Not everyone can do that, so making that easier is spot on. But in terms of government, so picking companies, I don't think is particularly good. I think there's an opportunity to pick sectors, and I think Gabriele's sort of operating in that space as well. What are the skills? What are the sectors? Personally, I'd love to see us thinking about where we have a comparative advantage, whether that's resources. We should be a low-cost energy country. That's all forms of government have failed on that front. Where it's time sensitive, some of what Jimmy's doing is very much in that space, so there's an advantage there. Where there's high growth potential, that's where governments really should be supporting industry. Where it's higher value, higher skill, higher value type sectors, government's really got to support that, because not only is employing people difficult, but doing R&D, investing in skills, getting businesses to a scale that they're competitive, that's hard work. So yeah, government's got a role, but not necessarily what it's been doing today.
Yeah, some great points. Thank you, Tim. And we just got one audience question that's come in. I might quickly put this to you guys before we wrap things up. So it's great to answer those if we can. So the question is, could you comment on the role that data plays in terms of measuring productivity gains? Tim, I can see you nodding. Do you want to take this one first?
Oh yeah, by all means. Look, so we're in a data-rich environment these days. Using data is, if it's not already part and parcel of how businesses are operating, it will be in the future. Equally, you can have a sea of data which tells you nothing if you don't know what you're looking for. So, yeah, data's got a role to play, but one of the things I quite like in Jimmy's story, it's people think productivity and they think cost automatically, but cost is a lag indicator. If you're using data to really monitor your lead indicators, and while Jimmy didn't talk to it, I could hear in some of what he's talking about, they're on a journey and they're improving. And you improve things which, whether it's time or service or whatever it is, that's what you focus on rather than the lag indicator, which is like looking at the scoreboard while you're playing a game of football. So, you know, it's got a role to play, but don't let it distract you from the real business. Would be, it's just part of business, not the business.
Great point. Jimmy or Gabriel, did you want to comment on that as well? Jimmy, maybe?
Happy.
Gabriel? You go first, Gabriel.
All right. I was just thinking about a few examples here that come out of our work at Federation University. And now this is cross-sector, but the use of data, for example, when it comes to dairy manufacturing, we're currently working on a micro-credential in dairy manufacturing where we really demonstrate how you can use data analytics. I spoke about the cognitive enterprise earlier on. Cognitive farming using, you know, data to also, for example, when it comes to crop and the water needs of those, there are some really very, very practical applications where you will save water, where you will, you know, have your logistical system function more effectively. Yeah, I think it's from what we can see, it's really important for small and medium-sized enterprises in particular to dive into this. And obviously, there's a bit of a barrier to entry there, even from a mindset perspective of, you know, do we have the resources, etc., etc. And that's why we work on those more accessible ways of, you know, skilling into this and understanding better how you can use this. But absolutely key to dive into, because this is what is happening not only across Australia but worldwide. So again, when we come back to the link between productivity and also competitiveness, this is a crucial piece in it.
100%. Jimmy, final word from you on this one?
Yeah, I agree with you, Tim. Yeah, you got to be careful with it. You can get lost in a minefield of data. You got to pick the data that counts. And you got to build reports that everyone understands. Once everyone understands it and it's beneficial to what they do, it's very valuable. But yeah, you can really get lost in it. But if you pick the right data and set it up so it's simple and everyone can read it, it's very, very effective, and you'll see big improvements.
Thank you very much. Well, I think so. We're out of time, unfortunately. So that does bring us to the end of the discussion today. I'd just like to say thank you once again very much to Gabriel, Jimmy, and Tim for your valuable insights today. I'm sure everyone would agree that this was a great session. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions about what's been discussed in the session today or any of our past webinars, and we'll be happy to have a discussion with you. As mentioned at the beginning of the session, you'll all be sent a recording of the webinar and the slides used today, and you'll be able to access those on the BDO website as well. We'll be looking to deliver another series of Rethinking Manufacturing webinars later in the year, so do keep an eye out for more communications about that in the coming months. And before we do close this session, there will be a short feedback survey that we'll launch once the webinar closes, so we'd really appreciate it if you could spend a few minutes filling that out for us, as it does give us really good feedback to use in future sessions. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And thank you also to everyone who's participated in and watched this Rethinking Manufacturing webinar series and made it such a great success. We look forward to continuing these discussions such as this in our future webinars. So enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.